Okay, welcome to ThinkTech Talks here on a given Monday, and it's the 4 to 5 block, so therefore we talk about agritech in the islands. And today we're going to talk about aquaponics in Kauai with Bernie Tsao. He's an independent aquaculture and aquaponics consultant in Kauai and an instructor in Kauai Community College. Welcome to the show, Bernie.
Thank you very much, Jay.
It's great to have you on. Aloha. So I want to get a handle, you're a real live aquaponics consultant and practicing and teaching on the neighbor islands, and somehow that's very different. So I want to get a handle on how you got into aquaponics, what kind of training you had, and what level. Are you black belt now? Is that what you are?
I'm not sure if I'm black belt, but I'm always learning. I never consider myself an expert in anything. I used to be when I was 18, but the older I got, the more I realized that every day I live, I learn a little bit more. So
are you from Kauai?
No, actually, I was born in Hong Kong, so I'm a transplant. I grew up in Southern California and went to college at the UCSB, University of California, Santa Barbara, and I got a degree in aquatic biology. So
what is aquatic biology? Aquatic biology, anyway. What is that?
Well, aquatic biology is kind of like marine biology, except more broad in scope. Marine biology is focusing on everything, all the life in the ocean, but aquatic biology includes lakes and freshwater streams and whatnot. So it's a little broader.
Was this at the beginning of the aquaponics revolution? I mean, if you don't mind me asking, how long ago did you take this degree?
Well, I graduated in 1980, so, but aquaponics is relatively new. It's been existing since, it actually got started the mid 60s, or actually early 60s. So it's been around for about 40 years, a little bit less than 40 years.
It sounds like one of those situations where, it takes you 10 years to learn the first lesson, 9 years the second lesson, and 8 years the third lesson. And after a while, it gets really quick to learn the lessons because we probably didn't know much at all in the 60s. And now, if you follow the science, you can really do this. Even Joe Stunk the Ragman can do this, right?
Yeah, you can if you know what you're doing. For me, it actually came pretty easy because, I guess I had an interest in food fish production ever since I was very, very young. So when I went to college, I was looking for a practical subject to take. So I decided to go with aquatic biology, but not really understanding how I'm going to apply it. And then I discovered aquaculture. So I've been involved in aquaculture for roughly 24 plus years now. But of course, aquaponics, that technology, as I mentioned earlier, has recently been developed since the 60s, but it hasn't really been commercialized. It's always been kind of like a research, and it's still kind of in its research stage, but the public didn't know much about it. And it's interesting that when I was teaching aquaculture, very few people really had interest in it until aquaponics came on the scene and everybody wanted to do it. It's just really ironic. It's funny because, it's kind of like wanting to learn how to surf but don't know how to swim, because you really need to learn aquaculture before you learn aquaponics.
It goes in reverse, doesn't it?
Yeah, because aquaponics is essentially derived directly from recirculating aquaculture. And so I've been involved in that for a long time. So it didn't take me, like you said, it didn't take me to learn aquaponics. It's kind of like second nature for me.
Yeah, well, did you come to Hawaii in order to practice in aquaponics and aquaculture, or did you come here for some other reason and realize that you had the training and the skills to get into this and it was a good place to get into it? I mean, which was the sequence?
Well, good question. I came to Hawaii. Actually, I came to the Big Island in 1989, and I joined up with a Christian mission organization called Youth of the Mission, or YWAM.
Hmm.
And basically, I saw the potential of using aquaculture as a tool for the sake of the gospel of Christ. And so that's what I started the trainings there. I trained classes and people who wanted to use this in serving other nations. So that's how I became.
So let me get it straight though. I mean, it's connected to the gospel because it helps underdeveloped nations feed their people and have a better life. Is that the reason?
Absolutely, it's a tangible way to show the love of Christ. That's what it is.
So you were doing that in the Big Island, and in what context? I mean, exactly where in the Big Island, and how successful was may I call it the aquaponics movement in the Big Island?
Well, that was aquaculture. Aquaponics hasn't come online yet.
Okay.
So it was a very successful school. I trained a lot of students, and we went on. Actually, other than Hawaii, we've done at least a dozen projects in 9 different countries within the 24 years I've been doing it. And this includes aquaculture and aquaponics projects, by the way.
So you were traveling?
Yeah, every year we travel. We would bring a team of students in. I would train them for 3 months, and then we would go out after their training. We go. That's their field assignment, and we would go out into another country, and we would actually start brand new, from ground up aquaculture projects.
Oh, that's great. I mean, I'm really interested to find out how that was and how, I mean, I'm reminded actually of one of our close friends at ThinkTech, which is Brad Wong. He's a retired surgeon, and his company is Aloha Medical Mission, and they go into underdeveloped countries and they give, operations to people who need operations to have a better life, and it's very nice work. It's very altruistic work. It's a beautiful thing they do, and this sounds like the same sort of thing where you go into places that are really remote, and you help people actually eat. So what kind of projects? What kind of places? Can you give us the flavor of that?
Sure. We work mostly with rehabilitation centers like orphanages and stuff, and we usually are invited as a team. We don't really go in there on our own and say, hey, we got a great idea, this is what you ought to do. But we work with a local NGO organizations that's been working there for a long time with the local people, so they know the culture and everything. And places like northern Thailand, Amazon, Brazil, Indonesia, Cambodia twice, Tonga, Fiji, Chile, Mexico, and so on like that.
If you had to be asked on each mission, how did they know about you? Are you world famous? Was your organization world famous so that the request would be made from all these places?
Well, yeah, I am not world famous, but the organization.
After this show, Bernie, you'll be world famous, I'm telling you.
But the organization that I was with, Youth of the Mission, is world famous. It's one of the largest Christian mission multipliers in the world, yes.
Ah, interesting. What's the name of it again?
Youth of the Mission, YWAM.
Okay. So now what took you from this sort of global projects, a series of global projects, emanating out of the Big Island to Kauai, where you're a consultant? It's not the same thing. How did you make that trip?
Well, it was a kind of a transition. From YWAM, we kind of spun off and started our own organization, and I moved with my whole family to Fiji, and we actually lived there for 6 years doing this kind of projects: community development, appropriate technology, training, fish farming, stuff like that to help people. But after 6 years, we decided that it was time for us to move back, and my kids were at that stage where they needed higher education, and there's a lot of issues that we're dealing with. So we moved back to Kauai. And I had past relationships here in Kauai since the early 80s from surfing and whatnot. So it's a real place in my heart. I really love it here. So we settled in Kauai, and then I continually want to be involved in missions as well as what I do best, which is aquaculture. And there weren't any programs here. And then I met up with some people from the college, and actually that's how I got into the college and started teaching there.
Oh, and your consultancy is in Kaloa, was it?
Oh yeah, that's where I live, and that's where my home office is.
That's
Yes.
where my wife is from, Kaloa. I have a special
Wow.
place for Kaloa, yeah. So it's perfect that you're from there.
Yeah.
Kaloa had deep history for me. Anyway, so now the nature of the consultancy, let's talk about that first. Do you have a big staff of consultants, or is it just you, Bernie?
No, it's just myself.
And
Yeah.
you make yourself available to people who want to create aquaculture and aquaponics facilities around Kauai.
Exactly. That's my specialty is training, design, and installation.
Okay, and do you follow a particular format? You know, I remember Jim Rakosi, for example. Did you ever know him from the Virgin Islands? He was big in aquaponics and came here at the behest of the university a couple of times. And he had a special, a special system. And it was, people were following that, learning from that. I mean, are there multiple schools, if you will, of aquaponics? And do you belong to one of them as opposed to others of them?
No, Dr. Ricosi is a fan. I'm a big fan of Dr. Ricosi, and I actually went to one of his workshops several years ago that was in Hilo. And also Dr. Wilson Leonard, I don't know if you've heard of him, he's from Australia, and he's also one of the big hitters in aquaponics in the world. And actually, my system is derived from both of these gentlemen and their research, and it's a combination of both. And of course, everybody has their little tweaks and how to improve and better.
Sure, it has to be that way.
That's right. So, but I don't follow a particular school of aquaponics. I understand the fundamentals of aquaculture and aquaponics, and then I basically modify the systems to make it a little bit more efficient, a little bit easier, a little bit better to use, maybe more energy efficient and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. So you come in and consult with a property owner, whether it be aquaculture or aquaponics, to help him build a facility that will yield food. Now, are your clients mostly individuals, individual homeowners, families, and the like, or are some of your clients commercial operations that want to make a buck and sell, lots of produce in the marketplace? Which side or both?
Yeah, actually, a lot of my clients are residential type people that wanted to do small scale aquaponics to feed themselves, so that they're a little bit more sustainable for food. However, I do have a couple of clients that are on the commercial scale.
I want to talk about that right after this break. That's Bernie Tsao, independent consultant and an instructor at Kauai Community College in aquaculture, aquaponics. This is ThinkTech Talks. We're talking about aquaponics in Kauai here on Agritech in the Islands on the Monday 4 to 5 block. We'll be right back after this break.
Hello, I'm Martin Despang, and I'm the host together with the one and only Ali Yamashita, and our show is called Urban Transcendence. And Urban Transcendence is about identifying where we have a unique situation of a vibrant city in one of the most beautiful natural environments. So how these two can coincide, sometimes conflict, how they could find reciprocity in the 21st century is what we're excited about. And we're planning on bringing in a diverse body of guests, both from the arts and the science and the established and the wise and the emerging generation. So hope you will join us. We'll always be on Thursdays from 1 to 2 p.m. Thank you.
Okay, we're back. We're live. I'm Jay Fidell here on ThinkTech Talks, talking about agri-tech in the islands here on a Monday afternoon, specifically aquaponics in Kauai with Bernie Tsao, an independent consultant and an instructor at Kauai Community College in the subjects of aquaculture and aquaponics. So, Bernie, let's talk about the continuum in a given community. That's why I like this whole discussion of how it works on Kauai, because we can see a relatively small, defined community and see sociologically, in a community kind of observation, how it works, how it starts and how it expands and how it moves from residential to, commercial. And the end of the road, I mean, as far as I can see anyway, is that we Hawaii, all islands, should, ultimately will have to have aquaponics facilities that can feed our people, provide, protein and all, and also export. And so I'm wondering where Kauai is on the continuum there. I mean, how far along are we to a point where everyone in Kauai understands the value of aquaponics, and there are people who step up, have a few bucks, invest a few bucks, build a facility, and start selling to the markets? Where are we?
Well, that's a good question, Jay. Let's go back one step behind for a minute here. You have to understand, Kauai is a very interesting island. I'm sure you understand the concept Hawaii time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, on Kauai, we got Kauai time, okay?
Okay,
So,
special.
yeah. The residents here, the communities here on Kauai, they're very proud of the fact that Kauai has never been conquered, and that spirit lives on. Okay, so the people here are very protective of the Aina and everything around it, and environment, and everything. And so it's like, if you go back, remember the super ferry, and then now we got GMO issues, and Kauai is the first one that's out there just going, no way,
Yeah, but Gary Hoosier lost. Didn't he lose on Saturday?
I don't know, but I don't like to talk about politics.
Sorry, I even mentioned that. Okay,
No,
go
it's
on.
okay.
Go on.
But well, I voted for him anyway. So, but the thing is, people are very protective, and they're really they're less. I would say they're not so easy to jump on new things and new ideas, anything that comes online. And of course, there are a number of skeptics also. They're just kind of saying, good idea, looks like it's good, but I'm gonna sit back and observe and see if it really works. I mean, that included myself for many years before I jumped into it. Mm-hmm. However, people like that, once you get them on board, they're fully committed. So it's like myself too. I was a skeptic, but now I've really discovered that aquaponics, like you said, is the key to sustainable food production. And I think we're really into something that will really, really work in providing, growing great amounts of nutritional, chemical-free food globally, being able to feed a lot of people. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you look at, I'm sure you have the aquaculture industry out of Kona on the Big Island, specifically in Nelha. You find a lot of local people in the Big Island. They don't like open ocean aquaculture.
Yeah, right.
They think that historically, culturally, they have rights that trump, the law that permits DLNR to lease out areas of open ocean. They take the position that the fish there belong to them no matter what. And if you ask them whether they're on board to sell Hawaii fish, open ocean fish, or any kind of fish to the world, and feed the populations of underdeveloped countries and the like, and developed countries, I suppose, they will say, no, we don't care. We only care to do it the old-fashioned way.
Yeah.
And I wonder if the attitude about ultimately providing protein to the world as an export item is the same in Kauai, or whether there's a barrier of that same kind in Kauai, or whether people in Kauai are more open to the possibility of actually growing protein and selling it outside of the state.
Yeah, that's a good question. Before we even go there, we're trying to be more sustainable in our own food production. As you know, that 85% of our food source comes from the mainland.
Right.
And so really, we have very little farmers, agricultural activities as comparing to other places on Kauai. So even before we talk about selling stuff to the other nations, we need to actually look at our own sustainability to make it better.
Well, let me change my question then. How do people in Kauai feel about sustainability? I mean, are they sensitive to the idea that all this food is coming in from the outside? It's all coming by barge. It's all expensive. It's using fossil fuel energy to get there and so forth. Or are they coming around to the view that it is far better to grow your own at home?
Yeah, it's a top priority for Kauaians here. We are actually on a movement of a sustainability movement here. So it's very important for the communities here to look at ways that we can produce our own food on island.
Yeah, it struck me that you just said a minute ago that in Kauai there are not that many farmers. It's interesting because Kauai, has been a very lush agricultural community. I mean, there's so much acreage was dedicated to sugar and all, which is now lying fallow. And diversified agriculture, I guess, as in the other neighbor islands, hasn't really got off the ground. So how do people feel, I mean, either trained or untrained in aquaculture and aquaponics, how do they feel about actually going to the trouble of setting up their own, facilities and growing their own produce and protein? I mean, are they willing to do that? Because it's work, it takes money, and it takes a kind of a different mental approach to do your own when you could just go down to Safeway and buy it.
Yeah, there's definitely an interest in the air, and people are pretty excited about the possibility to start up their own systems at home. But like everything, there are other priorities in life, and that kind of takes over. And even with the students that I graduate, I have over 150 graduates out there, and I think it's about 30% of the rate of people who actually took my course and actually went beyond that and actually set up systems at home. And I think that it's going to change. That's going to actually get a little bit. That number will increase. Like I always say, even doing projects in overseas, if people aren't hungry enough or they haven't experienced a major catastrophe, it's always like, there's always tomorrow.
Later, yeah.
Later. But, I think people are waking up. They're starting to wake up to the fact that, look, the last hurricane came through. People are really urgent. The urgency rises, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I was going to ask you, it's like criminal recidivism. What's the reason that people, go take a course, they learn how to do it, and then they don't do it? It sounds like, one reason, maybe there are others, you could help me with this. One reason is that it's too easy not to do it. But what can we do? You said you thought that percentage would go up. What can we do to make that go up? I mean, short of having a real storm, for example.
Well, let me answer your first question first. The reason I think that people tend to, after they took the course, they decided against it or just kind of put it off. I think a lot of people had the misconception of how easy aquaponics is from watching YouTube. Okay, right. There's a lot of junk out there. I mean, I'm sure you can find some value out on the internet, but most of it is people really don't know what they're doing, and they're trying to teach other people, and they're still learning and experimenting themselves. And so they're getting a misconception how easy aquaponics is, how little work it takes, and how cheap it's done. In actuality, it's the opposite. It's really it's kind of it's high capital investment. It's pretty expensive to start some like that, small or big. And then also, it takes work. It's a different type of work. It's not bending down, toiling soil. It's not pulling weeds, whatnot. But it's a different kind of technical work, and it requires somebody who can do troubleshoot. Somebody who has the mind to go down the list, and if something goes wrong, they don't just call somebody and say, "Hey, what happened?" So I think the discouragement comes after they take my course. Of course, it's like, wow, this is highly technical, and it's going to cost me quite a bit of money to set up initially. But then, they have to count the value on the outcome is much more than spending $3 for a head of lettuce. It's like, yeah, it's more expensive to grow your own lettuce for sure than to just run down to Costco and get a big bag of lettuce cheaply. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think those are some of the areas that are really kind of discouraging people from, jumping right into and say, yeah, this is for me, I'm going to do it.
Well, when they finish your course, Bernie, do they try, or are you saying that I need more I need more data here? Do they try and fail or become discouraged, or do they not try at all? What's that 30% figure? Are they the ones who have succeeded in it, or the ones who have tried it? What is that 30%?
Well, I think all of the above. I think some have tried it, some have given it up because it's too much work, and some have succeeded. As a matter of fact, some of those people have actually gone and moved ahead to the next level, to commercial system. And those are a couple of my clients, by the way. They have actually started a full-blown commercial system, selling to successfully. Yes.
Wow, that's fabulous. So let's go back to the mental attitude before we take the next break, and that is, we talk about work, but I get the impression that it's not physical work as in conventional farming. It's not digging in the soil necessarily or breaking your back, lifting things. It's more like having to be attentive every day, having to be responsible for the operation of the system, which has many moving parts, and never taking your eyes off it, never losing your attention, and that is its own kind of work. Am I right about that?
You're absolutely right. Aquaponics is a living organism, if you will. Okay, so it's everything from the fish, the bacteria, the plants, to worms, or whatever you got in that system is all alive, and they all depend on one another. If something goes off, then they're all going to be affected. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, and that could be.
Yeah, I would say comfortably. I would say for a medium-sized aquaponic system, you could manage it with one person, two persons, maybe max, and 20 minutes a day of maintenance. And then, of course, you got the seeding, and then the harvesting, and the cleaning, and the packaging, and the marketing. Now, all that's time, but that's nothing more involved in your normal agricultural activity, right?
Sure, and that's the easy part, actually.
Right.
So let me take a short break, Bernie, and then we'll come back, and I'd like to talk about the continuum of going from a successful residential producer, following the rules and maintaining that level of attention, and how you get from there, whatever investment that involves, to a commercial investment where you're actually making a cash return on your investment. That's a whole different thing, and that's ultimately, I think where we got to go statewide. But let's take a short break. This is ThinkTech Talks. We're talking about agritech in the islands with Bernie Tsao. He's an independent consultant and an instructor at Kauai Community College in aquaculture and aquaponics. And the title of our show is Aquaponics in Kauai, and it's really special. We'll be right back.
Aloha, this is Keli'i Akina. It's my privilege to be the host of Ehana Kako, a weekly program on the ThinkTech Hawaii Broadcast Network. Ehana Kako, what does that mean? Well, many people have heard of Epule Kako, let's pray together. Ehana Kako means let's work together. Let's work together to build a better economy, government, and society. And every week, Monday from 2 to 3 o'clock, you will see movers and shakers and other people who are working together to build a better economy, government, and society. Again, I'm Keli'i Akina on the Ehana Kako weekly program on the ThinkTech Hawaii Broadcast Network. Aloha. See you here Mondays, 2 to 3.
Okay, we're back. We're live here on ThinkTech Talks on Monday, talking about agritech in the islands with the help of the Department of Agriculture, State of Hawaii. And we're talking about aquaponics in Kauai today with Bernie Tsao. He's an independent consultant there with lots of experience, as I recall, 24 years plus. And he's an instructor at Kauai Community College in aquaponics and, I guess, aquaculture. So, Bernie, I mean, you know, to me, the metric, the achievement here is when the state, A, can feed itself in terms of, you know, protein and produce, and B, when it can actually export. So, you know, right now, you have a certain number of people in Kauai can do this. How much money have they put in? How much time? I guess talking about recidivism, you know, how many of the people that are doing it will continue to do it? How many people will give up, you know, and go to Safeway and buy their lettuce and fish there? And then, of course, I'd like to know how you make the leap, you know, from being a residential producer to a commercial producer, and what kind of risks you have. That's a very compound question, but let's see what you can do with it.
Okay, okay, I'll do my best. Well, to feed a family of four comfortably, I've actually designed a system that's a very small footprint. You're talking 6 foot by 4 feet, and with about 150-gallon tank of fish. So that will probably cost you of a capital investment less than $1,000 bucks. Okay, if you build it yourself. So if you take my course, basically our class, we're going to get together and we're going to build one system. The whole class are all involved, and then they actually will take it. Somebody will take it home with them. And if those other ones that want to do the same thing, they go and purchase the same materials that I provide for them, a list of them. They just walk into Home Depot or Ace Hardware or whatever, and they just pick up the same materials and they can make their own. And that's probably about $1,000, under $1,000 bucks. You can feed a family for pretty nice.
But you've talked about the original investment. What does it cost to keep it going?
Well, to keep it going, you would probably have to buy plant seeds. You would have to buy some, fish food. Because that's probably the most expensive stuff, fish food. It's about anywhere between $30, $40 for a 50-pound bag. But of course, we don't buy that much for home users. For home producers, we have to buy them in smaller quantity, like 10 pounds at a time. And that will cost us more because of less quantity.
Economies of scale, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, some water quality test kits, the reagents, and yeah, that's pretty much. Okay, and then you got electricity, power, which is minimal. The system that I talked about is 42 watts a month. So we already calculated a cost with Hawaii electricity rate, which is the highest in the nation. We're only paying $12 a month to run the system.
Even using conventional power.
Yeah, conventional power.
So if I put in photovoltaic, then I have I have renewable energy instead, and ultimately that will be better still.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, of course, then you have to put out the money for that. So the system that we have at the Kauai Community College, we are really blessed by the Hawaii Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism. They actually funded us $30,000, put us a photovoltaic system. So our aquaponic facility is completely off the grid. So that's really, really cool.
Oh, tell us about that system. This is the one where you use to demonstrate to your students how it works. This is a sort of a teaching system. How big
Yeah.
is it, and how productive is it?
It's very productive. It's let's see, we have two 50-foot grow beds, and then I have also an 8-foot diameter media filled bed, and we have 2 cubic meters of fish tanks, 4 of them, and then I stock about 154 fish in each tank, and we produce a minimum of 200 units of produce a week, and we sell at least 180 units a week
At the college?
Yeah, at the local farmers market. Right.
That's great.
Yeah. And we have a hired production manager and also aquaponics technician, and they get paid through the income generated from the sale. So essentially, it is actually a self-sustaining project at this point.
Okay, here I am. I'm a resident. I have a job. I'm a middle-class person. But I feel that I want to be part of the sustainability movement. I feel that I want to be prepared, for possible problems in the weather and so forth going forward, and supply and energy and whatnot. So I take your class. I spend $1,000. I feed my family of 4 on a fairly perpetual basis. And one day I say to myself, I have a talent for this. I'm able to do this. I bet, I can go back to Bernie Tsao and he can show me how to expand my operation to feed other people, go down to the farmer's market too, and make a few bucks on the side. What does it take to make that expansion, Bernie?
Well, depends on the size of the project you want. Usually I design a project backwards, is basically what target market you want to go with and how many units of production that you want per month, per week, and whatnot. So that whole number is variable, but the ones that I've worked with is the smaller commercial system that we recently put up last year. That costs around $10,000. That even include my fee, so that's not too bad. Now, the latest one that is just launched actually last week, the Kauai Roots Farm, that one is costing him already 30 grand. Of course, that one's a lot larger, and he's on photovoltaic, and everything he put up is grade A, top, first class. Everything's done properly. So, there's on the scale of basically, you can go as elaborate as you want, or you can go as basic as you want. Depends on your budget, of course.
Well, actually, $30,000 sounds like a fairly modest amount to start a business that will yield returns. I mean, when you think about it, most businesses take that plus much more as the original investment capital. So it's not a bad metric, actually. So
no, but just keep in mind though, these people built their systems themselves, so they didn't hire a crew. So they had to hire a crew that probably would have boosted up their capital investment a little bit more.
Okay, so take the $30,000 and assume that they built it themselves. Assume that they got first-class materials, good advice. They're following the rules. They're using photovoltaic for the energy part. What kind of income can they make? I mean, is this enough to live on, or do you still have to have a job?
Well, I would say for that scale that we've talked about so far, it probably will. You'll probably generate some income, but you probably will still consider that's a hobby. Of course, it depends on your demand and your market and where you're selling it to. But we're saying, okay, well, each unit will bring you in $3. Okay, so every whole or every unit that you're growing will give you $3 a week. And of course, you split your system into four parts so that you can rotation cropping, so you have harvest every week. And so with the system that we were talking about for 30 grand, I think you're going to be able to produce 200 units per week. And so you do the math, 200 times $3 each. So that would be a minimum of $600 a week to bring in.
Jay, that's not bad. That can help you.
Yeah, not bad to start.
Yeah.
But of course, just like anything else, you have to scale it up to a certain point before you can experience surplus.
Well, is there anybody in Kauai who has scaled it up? Are there some, what do you call it, standalone type aquaponics facilities there that actually have employees? I guess that would be the test of it, rather than sort of an expansion of a backyard hobby. Anybody at that level yet?
Not to date, no.
Do you foresee that will happen, and if so, when and how?
I'm hoping, and I don't know when.
How about you? I mean, I know you had to be instrumental in building the one at Kauai Community College, but why is it that you don't have a really splendid facility that services every market on Kauai?
Well, actually, I choose not to because I just want to focus on what I do best, which is instruction, which is teaching, training, and design and installation. I mean, I don't feel that I'm called to be a farmer, to day-to-day operation and sell produce, market, and stuff like that. So I rather stick with what I do best and continue to develop my skills in that area. And I also wanted to continue to do what I feel called to do, is to take this kind of technology to serve other people in other countries, which are very much needed.
So you still see it as a calling?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So what about the rest of the state? I mean, we're sort of measuring the whole state. We're seeing how many Bernie Tsaos there are around, how many Kauai community colleges there are around. I know, for example, there's Benny Ron in the Sitar, in the College of Tropical Agriculture and Human Resources in UH Manoa, and he gets out a lot and teaches courses and has his aquaculture hub website and so forth. And there are people hither and yon who travel from Oahu to go to neighbor islands. I mean, are we seeing a rising tide of boats here? Are we seeing other islands, for example, that are making progress like Kauai? Are we seeing commercial facilities developing in other parts of the state? Do you have a sense of that?
Absolutely, yeah. Kauai, like I said, we're kind of going on a different beat. We're a little bit slower than everybody else. We're not as up to date. But of course, Oahu and Big Island, I believe, are the two most developed islands as far as aquaponics is concerned. And I know Oahu, there's three, as I can think of right now, three very successful commercial scale operations that are being run at the moment. I think they're being consulted with Dr. Harry Ako and Dr. Clyde Tamaru. They're both UH people, and they're doing a great job.
Really. There's always Mari's Garden.
Yes, Mari's is one of them. Yeah, that's right.
He's a great guy.
Yeah.
And the Big Island, do they have commercial facilities also? I mean, in the aquaponics department?
Yes, they sure do. They have commercial operations, but not nearly as the scale that Oahu have. Let me make one thing clear. People always connect commercial or residential with the size. It's really not about the size. It's really about the intent. Okay, so you can actually have a pretty large residential system if your intent is to basically grow vegetables and fish to feed your family or a community locally, not bothering about marketing and selling them. That automatically becomes kind of like a hobby scale residential system. But commercial system, it really doesn't matter of the size. It's really the intent. If you have a product that you're targeting to grow, and you have to have so much quota per week that you have to sell and you have to grow, then that automatically becomes commercial. So it's really about the nature of the project, not the size.
We're about out of time, Bernie, but I wanted to ask you to take a moment and talk to the people. You know, this is maybe an opportunity for you to communicate with people who could be on a tipping point about aquaponics and who might consider it, but, you know, are still shopping at Safeway for their produce and protein. What would you say to them to address that tipping point, to address their decision process, to get them, you know, interested in this as a long-term sort of life choice? What would you say to them? Talk to them.
Well, I would highly encourage them to just take a calculated risk and look into it and actually, you know, jump on board. And I believe that aquaponics, I'm fully sold on aquaponics. I believe that it is really the method of sustainable agriculture and food production. And it's really a no-brainer. And the thing is, we actually do need to be more sustainable. And you might not want to consider large-scale commercial systems, but you know, to become more sustainable, personally, my philosophy is that if everybody takes responsibility for their own family, automatically, you're going to become more sustainable. And then, you know, the value that you get from aquaponics is more than how much you pay for a head of lettuce or a head of produce or whatever that might be. You know, it's fun doing it, and it's exciting, and you feel good, and also you know what you're putting into your product, and you know what you're getting out of it, because there's more control. And it's just great for education, raise up your kids, bring up awareness of where food comes from. And altogether, I think it's a win-win situation. I don't think there's a lose situation at all. So.
And if you can't or won't, at least for the moment, then you can always go down to a store that sells, a farmer's market, what have you, that sells aquaponics products, both produce and protein. And you can sort of get close to it that way and see how it works, see how it tastes, at least enjoy the fruits of it. So I suspect that somewhere in Kauai there might be such a market, right, Bernie?
Absolutely. We have many markets in the 4 communities on the island here. Yeah.
Bernie Tsao, independent consultant in Kauai, Community College instructor, joins us by Skype. Are you in Kauai now?
I am in Kauai right now.
Kauai, Skype from Kauai here on Agritech in the Islands. We're talking about aquaponics in Kauai, another view of aquaponics. We really appreciate your time and all that you do, Bernie. Thanks so much.
Thank you. It's an honor and privilege to be with you on this program.
Thank
Aloha.
you, Bernie. Aloha.